Hey guys, I'm back once again, and today I'm gonna do another video for you, this time about Henselt. A little bit of a different deck to what you're normally seeing with Henselt decks these days, you know, the sort of ballistas, reinforced ballistas, whatever, maybe even no done banner sort of thing, and then different gold cards as well, which are pretty important in a Henselt deck, which, you know, usually relies on some kind of finisher like Bork or Bloody Baron. But in my case here, yeah, this was the deck I actually brought to Challenger, and I thought I'd just give it a bit of a recap because I think out of all the decks that I played, you know, this one and probably the Bruiser are the two that, you know, you can still very much get away with playing on ladder. Um, this one is definitely strong. I don't know, you can make a case for other Henselt decks being stronger, potentially. Um, but this one does have some really nice matchups and, you know, some less favorable ones. But, you know, Henselt is going to have some bad matchups, you know, no matter what version you're playing. Um, but anyway, yeah, the idea of this one is we're not running Villain Trettenmirth, the big dragon that scorches everything. We're not running Bloody Baron, which are your typical ways to close out the game with Henselt. Instead, we're going to be basically using winches and siege towers and the Neke to get as many siege towers as possible for round 3 and just save that Henselt for round 3. You know, use Shani to res a siege tower, that sort of thing. And basically the whole idea of the deck is you have these tools which allow you to get that huge Henselt, preserve it for round 3, and then blow the opponent out of the water with that. Rather than, you know, using Henselt in round 1 or something, as a lot of other Henselt decks will want to do. So that's kind of the idea of the deck, and it has some really nice matchups, particularly Alchemy. Alchemy is such a good matchup. It's very difficult for them to win. You can kind of bully them out on points. You can dry pass if you're on blue. If you're on red, you don't care. You can just keep up in points without using the Henselt, and then save the Henselt for round 3, and they can't interrupt it with Witches because Siege Towers will go to 12 points, you know, out of range of the typical Viper Witcher. So pretty nice in that matchup. Some scarier ones are, you know, Skellige. I mean, you're not running Scorch in this deck, so it's a bit difficult to beat the Great Swords. It's difficult to beat the Bran. Scoia'tael can be a little bit tricky depending on what side of the coin you're on as well. Especially on blue, you know, you're gonna be in trouble some of the time, but you've always got winches to find the ballistas, right? Which can do some real work against any Bruiser deck. So there's that. But yeah, should we run through the cards real quick? We can do that. So of course you have Henselt, which is the whole idea of playing like a machine deck in Northern Realms. You guys are probably aware of that by now. He's pulling out all other copies of the machine, and you really want to use him with winches. You're creating a card that you have in your deck, so either a tower or a battering ram in this case, and then you're able to pull out 3 copies from your deck. And then if you use Naneke, you can shuffle cards that you've already created using Winch and get even more than 3 out of your deck in round 3 or round 2 or whatever. So that's really quite powerful. And you know, that's going to be like upwards of a 50-point play sometimes. So completely like mind-boggling for constructed decks. So yeah, that's the leader. Got Selkirk, he's a bit of removal, solid 19-point card a lot of the time. Otherwise, you can remove a key target. Just a really solid card. You see it in all Northern Realms decks pretty much. Natalis, bit of thinning, bit of, you know, winch availability, so you can do this whole tactic with the siege towers. Triss, for the same reason, having winch on demand is really nice. So you're basically, you know, getting free extra winches, which doubles down on the whole idea of the deck, so that's really good. Shani is there to basically confirm that you get the Henselt in round 3, because otherwise sometimes it can be tricky. Maybe you don't have a target reliably, or maybe they remove your target and you want to revive it. So Shani is there to make the deck more consistent pretty much, and you know, she's a fair amount of points as well. In a lot of cases, you can even sometimes revive Naneke to reshuffle cavalries, things like that. Can be pretty good. We then have Tala, really good in a deck where you're running the Dun banner, which will pop out whenever you go ahead by, whenever you go behind by more than 20 points. So that's a really nice combo. You've got the Tala and then the cavalry come out, and you're basically playing a 1-point spy. I'm sure a lot of you already seen that in action at some point. Ronvid, of course, carryover, really strong in any machine deck, giving you that crewman throughout the game, really powerful. Does run into trouble against Coral, that's kind of the scariest card from Skellige, can deal with Ronvid very well. And the Neke is, as we said, shuffling back machines, really important. And you can shuffle back the Dun banner as well, potentially for 22 points later on in the game, depending on what you're up against and whether you need more machines in the deck. Usually you want to shuffle machines, but Dun banner's an option. Death mode, not running Scorch just because I feel like uh, you have a hard time against things like Consume and Great Swords already, and adding one Scorch not really going to be too much of a help. So the Death Maul is just nice to avoid any weather decks crushing you, and also for a bit of instant removal on things like Dragoons and you name it, whatever else. Great Swords, but as I say, that's kind of a hard matchup anyway. Um, and then double cross, you're getting spy access and Ronvid access, really good. Reinforcement, get your Ronvid more, frequently. You really just rely on these two silvers to, they're basically the core, of the silvers. They're going to be a lot of the points that you generate, and a lot of the advantage you can gain is from these. So really important to have access to them. And of course, we've got siege towers, which are just solid points, easy Henselt target, really hard to counter, and a lot of people don't expect you to actually be running them, so you can often just surprise them with your big Henselt play when they don't even think it's a target. Siege Master, of course, yeah, most of the time using this on battering rams and the winched random machines, like ballistas, reinforced ballistas, trebuchets, that sort of thing. Of course, battering ram is a really solid machine, always giving you, 12 points probably, just solid. And yeah, good crewman target, and you can always pull battering rams out in round 3 if that's more profitable than siege towers. And then, yeah, of course, winches and dun banners. So that is the deck. It's pretty strong. It has some good matchups, some bad matchups. It is probably more of a tournament deck than a ladder deck, but I think as far as Henselt lists go, this definitely isn't a terrible one. But yeah, I'll jump into some gameplay now, and we can talk through the mulligans and all that good stuff. So see you in a minute. Alright, guys. Look like words. Looks like Brand's going to be the opponent. Should be an interesting one. This probably won't be a great matchup, but we'll see how we can what we can do, how we can make it work. So with the mulligans, you're going to want to be getting rid of rams and towers. Mostly towers, if you're wanting to pull them out. You can even go down to having 0 in hand, which we'll do here, because you're going to be able to create them from winch at some point in the game, and you don't want to be using the Henselt immediately. So not having a target for it in round 1, not really a huge problem most of the time. We'll just get rid of Ram as well, give us more options. Now typically you're never going to go for the third mulligan if you still have done banners in your deck. It's just not worth the risk. Much better to play it safe and not take that extra mulligan. And that goes for all the rounds throughout the game. You don't want to be taking the mulligan if you have done banners still in the deck. Just like 90% of the time, not worth doing, because it's really going to hurt you in the long run. And here, we're going to have some troubles against Skellige because they have Coral for Ronvid, they have Carryover, which you can't really deal with, and they have long round value, which is a bit of a problem. Red coin is nice though, we're going to be able to potentially push some card advantage or a win on even or something like this. Blue coin, it's harder, you might have to go for Dry Pass, but then you're going to run into difficulties with the brand carryover and stuff like that. But yeah, we'll see how it goes here. So, can start with the Ronvid and just hope he doesn't have Coral. If he does, kind of unfortunate, that's going to really hurt, but we'll make do. And it looks like we're playing against some wacky longship action, which, why not? I mean, all good, but right here, the Selkirk really comes in clutch, right? Give us a bit of value on the boat. You just want to be removing anything that's going to give them a lot of, long-term value with Selkirk, if you can. Failing that, just like an 11-point card, pretty decent for a big swing. But yeah, we'll see what happens here. Some kind of crazy shenanigans going on from the opponent. But yeah, either way, we can get to grips with how the deck works, what it can do, and you'll see it has like a fair amount of points. Even when you're not using the Henselt in a round, you can definitely push for a win. So at this point, you're wanting to basically get your winches out and try to look for those machines that are going to be your Henselt target later. So either rams or and we do find a ram here. Rams or siege towers. Siege towers are probably better on the whole because, you're going to be able to more likely get the Henselt off on all of those. Battering rams can be removed a little bit more easily, which is, kind of a scary thing if you're relying on the Henselt to win. And typically a different version of Henselt, with Baron or Bork, they might just play the Henselt at this point in the game, just like, okay, easy, take the 3 machines. But no, we don't need to do that. We can just chill, we can relax, and probably go with the Triss or just a Winch. We would like to get ahead, so Triss seems fine. And just here we take whatever's most points. Probably going to be the Reinforced Ballista. Also sets us up some nice Siege Masters on Rams, things like that. And yeah, you really want to be keeping ahead on even if you can, and then using Tala at a point where you think you're going to be able to get your cavalry out, or if you have no other play really. Like to save Tala and not just shoot it off immediately, because if they have their own spy, it can be a little bit awkward, right? But at this point, I mean, we have the option to take some card advantage. Probably don't want to do that because of the Wolfsbane being a little bit of an issue. If we do pass, it's going to have carryover, and we don't really want to have to deal with that. So we're going to play a couple more cards here, maybe a Winch, maybe a Siege Master. We'd kind of like to get rid of one Siege Master here, and it is pretty good value because he's got, the 4 strength that we can hit. So we will do that. And yeah, Siege Masters can get awkward if you don't have any machines, right? So that's something to think about. He goes for the Strengthen on the Blacksmith, which is a bit scary, but at this point we're like pretty happy to take our cards because the Wolfsbane will proc after he plays one, and we're going to be 2 cards up without having to worry about the 12 points from Wolfsbane. So that's pretty nice, and we still have our Spy to either counter Spy or put pressure on in the next round or even round 3. So that's nice. And right now we're looking at Rams as our target, since we have 3 of them in deck, 1 in the graveyard, whereas there's only 3 towers in the deck. And typically that's what you're going to be looking at. You're going to be checking to see what the better target is. And, since we draw Ram, it might even still be the case that the Siege Tower is better. But here, obviously, we're going to get rid of the Dun Banner. You don't want to be playing those from hand. Always want to be pulling them out of the deck if possible. Pretty self-explanatory. And we'll see what happens here. We're probably going to go with Spy immediately because it's going to push him out of the round. It's going to make things awkward for him. Although this does get him far enough ahead that our cavalry come out anyway. Which, makes it, less necessary to play the Tala. One thing to keep in mind is ours double crosses finding Naneke if it's not finding Tala or Ronvid because you've played either of those already. So we can use that to shuffle some stuff back at some point if we need to do that. Here I think we're going to go with Natalis. We just want to bridge the point gap a bit, take a Winch, and Siege Tower is looking like the pick. We can pull 3 of those out then at any point, and we are getting ahead by 1 point, so that's very nice. And if we Winch another Siege Tower, then we have the option to, shuffle a tower back and, do things later on that might be nice. So here we need 12 points to be catching up, and the Ram is going to provide that, so we're just going to, shoot that out. The other alternative is Winch, and honestly it's probably better to take that because if we hit tower it's enough, if we hit a load of other stuff it will be good enough. And in this case, since we've got we've got 1 crewman, I think Trebuchet is actually the most value on the back row, so we'll take that. Gives us a pretty nice Siege Master target as well, can maybe hit Morkvarg down, do some damage. We'll see what happens. But yeah, now that we've got all the winches out, we're pretty confident what our target is going to be for the Henselt, and we don't need to use it yet. Maybe we can use it this round if we're feeling the pressure and we want to, guarantee that we're winning the round. But right here, we're chilling out, we're having a good time. Battering Ram seems like a safe play. Kill the Raider, set up another kill on the Longship potentially, using Siege Master to do that. And at some point we'll play Tala and then maybe use Henselt to gain 3 card advantage, depending on what he does. Might not even come to that. Really, depends what happens here. So in this case, honestly, it might be good to play the Tala now. If we are able to bridge the point gap without using like a really good card like Henselt, then that would be perfect. As things stand, I'm not sure that's going to be possible, so, maybe just better to go with the Siege Master, put on the pressure, and the question is, do we kill this or not? I don't think we bother. I honestly don't think he really has anything that'll be too much of a problem. Rather just go for some carryover, killing the Morkvarg. Now we'll see what happens next. The Spy, it maybe will become awkward, especially since we don't really want to play Naneke at this point. Although, there's an argument to be made that that'll be a fine play. Is going for the bear. And I think, yeah, Naneke is probably our play here. We don't really need to shuffle back anything, maybe a Ram. Yeah, just to give us the Henselt And you could shuffle the Dunbanner back, but I don't think we need to do that here. Just ram, just get the points. And then we're looking at Henselt and Shani for round 3, but he is going to play his card here, which, yeah, makes things a little bit tricky, or not. Well, there we go. That's a win, apparently. But yeah, hopefully that just displays what the deck does. Decently. It's all about finding the winch targets, getting those, saving them for round 3, Naneking back stuff if you need to, and yeah, explosive Henselt in round 3. You didn't get to see it, but it would have been huge. I'm sure you remember the games I had against Adzikov, and Henselt did perform at the end there. So yeah, this deck has some good matchups, has a couple of bad ones, but I think it's a pretty strong Henselt deck, and it's maybe a bit of a change to the usual, Villain Mirth Baron sort of shenanigans that are going on. Yeah, not necessarily the best, but maybe worth a try. Anyhow, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you next time.